Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, this 5 o'clock hour, Arthur Rhodes up next. But right now, David Hellman, DallasCowboys.com, and my gosh, there's things going on at the Star in Frisco, OTAs. David Hellman with Craig, Paul, and David Smoak. So, David, you put something up, a response to Jalen Smith wanting to wear jersey 9. I know he's practicing in it, and I never thought about this. He wore 54 with two of the most popular Cowboys of all time in Randy White and Chuck Howley, and there was never any outrage on that. Is Tony Romo walking on water when it comes to his number?
I just, I think it's a little bit of recency bias. And I mean, like I said on Twitter, it's way more about Jalen Smith than every player, or than any player. Like, Jalen Smith is publicly number one for Cowboys fan base, and deservedly so. Like, I don't have a problem with people criticizing him. I think he probably deserves it for the size of his contract and the way that he played last year. But if Jalen Smith was an All-Pro, nobody would care that he was wearing number 9, and he was wearing the number of two guys that at least in terms of resume were better. Like, Randy White's in the Hall of Fame. Chuck Howley was the Super Bowl MVP. They're both in the Ring of Honor. And I'm not trying to knock Tony Romo, but again, like, nobody made a peep about that. And I think it's way more about what's going on with Jalen than how great Tony Romo was. And he'll have an opportunity to silence those people, because if he goes out and plays great, again, nobody's going to care. It's all about what have you done for me lately.
David, have you ever watched a guy walk around at practice today like you did with Dak to try to see if he's got a limp or anything like that?
I'll tell you what, man, that's my number one takeaway from OTAs is, like, Dak threw an interception, and I thought it was the best play of the day. And not because of, obviously he got picked off. That's not what you want, but it was 7-on-7. His primary guy wasn't open, and he broke out and scrambled and was directing traffic with the receivers and running at full speed and, kind of torqued his hips and threw on the run. And like I said, the ball got picked off, but I was like, okay, if he can do that and throw the ball 25 yards on the run at a dead sprint, he's probably going to be okay. And that was really my main takeaway, is that he doesn't look like a guy that's coming off of breaking his ankle at all. He moved great. He was throwing it effortlessly, 25, 35, 40 yards downfield. I think the Cowboys are smart to keep him out of the fray. There's no need to do that right now. But if I had any concerns that he's going to be, limited or whatever at training camp, like, he put a lot of that to rest for me today, because he didn't look like somebody coming off an injury at all.
Well, David, a big part of his success this season will also have to do with that offensive line. I saw where Lyle Collins, Tyron Smith were back out there. What were your impressions of seeing those guys? And I'm sure it was probably just refreshing for everybody to see a fully intact offense for the most part.
Yeah, my main thing with those guys is, it's, if this is what you're doing on day 2, that's a really good sign, because nobody would begrudge them if they weren't ready and they were just kind of hanging off to the side and anything yet and mixing in later. But, for them to get into their helmets and get into their stance and be ready on day 2, that's really encouraging. Now, it's shorts and helmets, and they didn't go against anybody. Tyron and Lyle sat out for when the defensive line came onto the field, so they weren't even really going against guys in a non-contact setting. But, it's all a process. So we'll keep our eye on it. But again, like, I'm all about your starting point. DeMonte Kazee is another one, for a guy who tore his Achilles in October. And obviously he's got a lot more work to do before the season gets here, but he's out there backpedaling, cutting, going through reps on day 2 of OTAs. That's a good sign. If you're ready to participate at the start of OTAs, that at least gives me some optimism that you'll be ready when the real stuff starts.
David, is Zeke Elliott, he had the great start to his career. We know kind of where he's been. We know about what they've dealt with offensively at times, even though they've been explosive. Is this kind of like his last chance to kind of have an explosive year? Is he due for one of those?
I don't know if he's due, but I think this is a big opportunity for him to change the narrative, because that's, probably starting, I would say 19 is when really people are to change their opinion of how good he was and how explosive he was and whether he's worth the pick and whether he's worth the money. And it's kind of the same thing as Jalen Smith. I mean, I don't have a problem with anybody that wants to criticize Zeke for the way that he played last year. he makes $15 million a year, and the expectations are high. Even when you don't have your quarterback or your offensive line, the expectations are high for a guy that makes that much money. You should be able to make things happen by yourself if you're worth that kind of money, and he wasn't able to. But it's a big, big opportunity for him because, as far as we know right now, all those guys will be back. So I absolutely think Zeke is going to bounce back in a big way in 2021. And if he doesn't, then, the narrative is kind of deserved. And, if he struggles again with a year of everybody having good health, if he's got Dak in the lineup and it still doesn't look right, then now you're probably having conversations about like, all right, what does the future look like without Zeke? That's just the nature of the business when you have that kind of contract. But having said all of that, I do have high expectations for what he can be this year.
David, was anybody just not there, from the Cowboys today because of injury, or were most of the injured guys out there at least doing some work?
I mean, ironically, Zeke, I believe, is the only member of the team that didn't come into the indoor facility for at least part of practice. And, Mike McCarthy said, he's been here all through the offseason. He was here yesterday. I don't anticipate that it's some kind of big deal, especially, if you're on social media. Zeke's been posting workout videos, it seems like every day for a month or two. So I personally don't really care that he was, but I do think he was the only real absence. Even all of the injured guys were doing something today. So yeah, I mean, as usual, the Cowboys have very, very good attendance in the offseason program.
David, what have been your impressions of Dan Quinn?
I say this to y'all every week. It's been so weird, not really being around these guys, but I had a chance to officially meet and introduce myself to Dan today. I think the big thing for me with him is his energy. Actually, his two Atlanta guys, DeMonte Kazee and Keanu Neal, both talked to the media today, and they said a lot just about what a high energy guy is. He called him a player's coach, a guy that goes looking for that dog-like mentality, and because leaving Atlanta, said, he knew that he would give his all for a guy like Dan Quinn, and that was absolutely part of the reason why he signed here. So, I don't know him super well. I met him for a couple minutes today, but that seems to be the overwhelming review of Dan Quinn, even from people that I know who are with him in Atlanta, is that he's a high motor, high energy guy. So, I mean, that seems like a good place to start for a defense that had as many struggles as this one did.
David, just judging your Twitter timeline, you have as much fun as we have with Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a golf guy. I don't play it. I don't really watch it, but I said that to somebody. I was like, everybody relates to that. Everybody relates to that feeling of just being absolutely exasperated by a coworker or just somebody that's in your life that you don't like very much. And I thought it was outstanding. Like I said, I don't follow golf closely, but Brooks Koepka strikes me as a guy who's very willing to speak his mind. And as somebody who covers athletes for a living, I really appreciate that. So please keep it up, Brooks. Give us more of that.
Me too. I love it. I love it. Now there's a picture of his eyes basically shutting in demonic fashion with DeChambeau kissing his neck from behind. It is so Twitter. It's hilarious. Thanks for your time, David. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Armstrong, do you have that one? Do you